everybody! This is Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, a NASCAR and racing podcast. What a jam-packed weekend full of racing at two different tracks. ARCA and the Truck Series would be at the road course of Lime Rock out in Connecticut. ARCA, could Thomas Annunziata win on back-to-back years? Or could Tristen McKee or another regular take the trophy? Trucks would be ready to roll on Saturday up north at the track. Would it be a dogfight between Layne and Kaden Honeycutt? Or could a veteran of Ben Rhodes, Majeski, or Grant Enfinger take the win? Then out in Atlanta Motor Speedway, O'Reilly and Cup Series would be at the mile-and-a-half super speedway. O'Reilly, could Richard Childress Racing continue their dominance at the speedways? Or could a junior motorsports car ring through? Cup Series, Sunday night, underneath the lights. Could anyone stop the Toyotas? Interview with Garrett, Smithley, yellow flag, green flag, discussions with Dave, Fast Davies bets, paint scheme of the week, NASCAR history time, tire diaries, predictions and drivers to look out for at North Wilkesboro, and so much more on this episode of Splash of Gas. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Now for the ARCA Series recap from Lime Rock. After qualifying, Carson Brown would be on the pole, followed by last year's winner, Thomas Annunziata. Thomas and Carson bring the field to green. Early, Tristen McKee leads, followed by Annunziata. Then 4 laps later, Thomas gets past the young McKee. After another restart, Jake Bowman now leads, followed by Annunziata. Laps later, Thomas takes the lead back. Another restart with 18 laps to go, and Annunziata leads. Rest of the race stays green and is won by the New Jersey native in Annunziata. Now for trivia question time. This week's question is, NASCAR heads out to North Wilkesboro in North Carolina. They started racing out in Wilkesboro before NASCAR started in 1948. What year did North Wilkesboro open in, and who won that first race there? Hint, he's in the Hall of Fame. And maybe we mention his name on this week's episode. Now for the Truck Series recap from Lime Rock. After qualifying Saturday morning, Layne would win the pole, followed by Connor Mozak. They take the field to green. Riggs would clear for the lead. Kaden Honeycutt gets up to second. They stay green. Riggs holds strong and wins the first stage. Riggs and Honeycutt restart for the middle stage. Yellows fly on lap 45, first for Majeski, hitting the tire barrier after losing his brakes. Then on the ensuing restart, as Landon Lewis gets spun into the grass after contact with Mozak, collecting 5 others. Honeycutt and Riggs restart with 2 laps to go on the stage. Kaden clears and wins stage 2. Start of the final stage be littered with yellows on lap 66, followed by a red on lap 79. Then the last yellow with 8 to go as Corey LaJoie stalls. Giovanni Ruggiero and Grant Enfinger restart with 2 laps to go. Who would be ready to take the trophy? Gio clears off the restart, but gets loose off turn 7, and Grant pounces back and takes the lead. Landon Lewis gets up to second. Enfinger is able to hold the youngster off, and the veteran from Alabama is victorious out in Connecticut. Congratulations to Grant and everyone on that team. Shout out Robert Howard. Congratulations, man. Now switching things up, out to Atlanta, as O'Reilly Series and the Cup Series will be ready to go. Now for the O'Reilly Series recap. O'Reilly would be roaring to go Saturday night out in Atlanta. After qualifying, Sam Mayer wins the pole. Him and Carson Kvapil take the field to green. Early yellows on lap 3 and 21 lead to a restart with just 18 to go in the stage. Mayer and Sammy Smith restart. Sammy gets the jump and leads. 8 laps later, his teammate Carson Kvapil passes him for the lead. Kvapil goes on to win stage 1. Brent Cruz and Harrison Burton bring the field to green for the middle stage. Tire stage stays green. On the final lap of the stage, Justin Allgaier is able to get past Sammy Smith and wins stage 2. Allgaier and Raja Karuth restart for the third and final stage. But they just kept wrecking. Yellows on lap 101, 112, 120, 133, 139, 146, and 151, which would lead to a restart between Justin Allgaier and Carson Kvapil. But they wreck again 3 laps later as Austin Hill tries to make it 3 wide. Overtime restart. Kvapil and Nick Sanchez restart. But they don't make it that far as Jeremy Clements gets spun by Justin Allgaier, forcing another overtime. Again, Kvapil and Sanchez restart. Then Brennan Poole clears for the lead, coming to the white flag. Could the Alpha Prime driver and Brennan Poole pull the upset win? Final lap. Kvapil running fourth, bumps Nick Sanchez, getting loose in the inside of Brennan Poole. Allgaier's able to get around them. He holds off Kvapil and Parker Redsloff. Justin Allgaier wins out in Atlanta. What a great double overtime finish. That leads us right into Sunday. Sunday night, the Cup Series would be ready to go, this time for the second time of the season, out in Atlanta. After qualifying, Ryan Blaney takes the pole. Him and his teammate, Joey Logano, take the field to green. Blaney clears and leads. By lap 8, all 3 Team Penske cars are running 1, 2, and 3. 14 to go in the stage, Kyle Larson gets past Austin Cindric for third. A lap later, he would be in second and start to hound Blaney for the lead. 11 laps to go in the stage. Tyler Reddick now passes Larson for second. Blaney is able to hold off Reddick and wins the first stage. Reddick and Larson restart for stage 2. Reddick leads early, but Larson takes the lead over a few laps later. Then on lap 83, Carson Hocevar takes the top spot. 12 laps later, now Blaney surges back to the top spot. Then a yellow flag on lap 108 for lightning. And leading into weather, meaning an over 3-hour rain delay to dry the track. Once they go back green, it's Blaney and Bubba Wallace on the restart. Blaney again leads. Rest of the stage stays green and is won by Ryan Blaney. Can anyone stop Ryan? Ty Gibbs and Austin Cindric restart for the third and final stage. Gibbs leads until a yellow on lap 194 as AJ Allmendinger spins. Christopher Bell and Larson restart on lap 201. This would eventually lead to Blaney and Bubba Wallace battling for the lead with Blaney holding down the spot. Carson Hocevar would eventually get in the mix as well. 2 more yellows, Blaney and Hocevar restart with 13 laps to go. 5 to go, Larson and Hamlin make contact, sending Kyle spinning, forcing the race into overtime. Hocevar and Blaney restart for the 2-lap shootout. Carson gets a run on turn 3 and 4, leading to the white flag. Blaney clears again off turn 1. Bubba challenges but fades as Hocevar tries to reel Bubba in. Bubba crosses the yellow line in that process. Ryan Blaney wins in Atlanta. Bubba Wallace is actually given a penalty going over the yellow line. Bell and Hocevar in second and in third. Congratulations to Blaney and that 12 team. Well earned out there. Dominated from qualifying all the way through the long rain delay onto the trophy. Quick look back at the predictions we made for Lime Rock in Atlanta. ARCA went with Thomas Annunziata, the New Jersey kid. He gets the win. Trucks, I went with Riggs. He wins the first stage, but in the end, he finishes 23rd. O'Reilly, Austin Hill has his chances. He finishes 22nd. Cup, Bubba was right there at the end as we were talking. Really does have a chance to win the race. He does cross the yellow line. NASCAR does give him the penalty. We know Bubba was in the NASCAR trailer for over 30 minutes at the end of the race. Bubba finishes the last car on the lead lap. Now for yellow flag, green flag. ARCA, Thomas Annunziata, goes out there, faces some stiff competition too on the ARCA side, but in the end, dominates on the way to that trophy. Yellow flag trucks. I've been high on Layne Riggs this year, and especially what he's been doing recently on the road courses. Just tough ending for him. He really did have a truck that could have won, but that's racing sometimes. Green flag to Grant Enfinger and everyone on that 9 team. Great to see a veteran like Grant grab a win. Yellow flag, O'Reilly, was just a wreck fest for everyone out there. I mean, in top cars, Sam Mayer, Corey Day, Taylor Gray, all crash. O'Reilly, green flag, Brennan Poole, and Garrett Smithley. You know, Brennan gets caught up in the mess there at the end, but he's bringing the pack to the white flag, leading there. That was awesome to see an underdog lead like that at the end. And then don't forget about Garrett Smithley. SS Greenlight in the 0 has a P6 finish. Awesome to see some of those guys from the smaller teams finish towards the front. Yellow flag, Cup Series. The rain just forced a long night for everyone. Green flag waved just before 2:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Green flag, Cup. Blaney's Ford takes down the Toyotas. More on that on Discussions with Dave. Now for Discussions with Dave. Let's start off with talking about the Cup Series qualifying. We have seen how dominant Toyotas have been this year. Before Blaney's win in Atlanta, it's been since the Coca-Cola 600 since a non-Toyota car has won on an oval. It's a lot of races. But as we kind of know from the super speedways, the Toyotas in the practice and qualifying, especially the single lap qualifying, just don't trim out on the aerodynamic side too well at all. If you look at qualifying from Atlanta, the top Toyota, I was really surprised. You know, I know the Toyotas haven't been qualifying for this specific model of the Camry compared to the, Chevys and Fords, of course. But there was no Toyotas in the top 10. I was surprised by that. Eric Jones, actually, in the 43 is the top Toyota qualifier, qualifying P11. Now, moving along into the Cup race, of course, have that long rain delay, and that's where I got lost on a Sunday night race, going in the long rain delay. I fell asleep, unfortunately. Woke up to the Blaney in victory lane. He actually is awarded a pretty cool Harley-Davidson motorcycle for celebration of the 250, and of course that's given to the winner of Atlanta. Blaney, after all that, was running laps on his motorcycle around the track that he just won. Pretty neat. But nonetheless, an exciting and awesome Atlanta finish. I was really surprised how close the race came down to it watching the highlights when I woke up the next morning. And as a NASCAR fan, I truthfully don't in-depthly recall what Atlanta was like before the repave. But heck, I love it post-repave. I was there in 23 for that 3-wide finish between Blaney, Kyle Busch, and Daniel Suarez. And just Atlanta just breeds such great finishes. Yes, of course, there's a lot of wrecks in the O'Reilly race and good amount of wrecks in the Cup race, which led to each finishing in overtime, of course. But it's just exciting, awesome racing. It's kind of weird having the second Atlanta race in the beginning of July. Atlanta's done for the year. I mean, NASCAR is never going to give a track 3 races in a season, of course. But I wouldn't be opposed to it as a fan. Just a thought. That gets into our next topic on DWD, O'Reilly Series race. Was a total wreck fest. I went over the complete slew of cautions that were happening in the third stage there. It's crazy because the second stage went completely green, but that's racing sometimes, right? And so awesome to see some of these guys from the smaller teams be towards the front. Brendan Poole takes the field to the white flag, leading. Garrett Smithley finishes 6th. Both Viking Motorsports cars finished in the top 5. Jeremy Clements finishes 10th. Mason Maggio 11th. Josh Bilicki 12th. Glenn Reen in a Joey Gase Motorsports car finishes 15th. You might be saying, Dave, I have no clue who those guys are that you just mentioned. And that's all right. But as you'll hear talking with Garrett Smithley later in the show, those guys are just working as hard, or maybe even harder, as some of these bigger teams. Great to see the fruit those teams' labors pay off. Last topic on discussions with Dave, part 1. Does ARCA and the trucks go back to Lime Rock? As we know, the last 2 years, last year and of course last weekend, ARCA Truck Series has been running at the 1.5 mile road course in Connecticut. And Lime Rock has been described as the short track of road courses. And I think that's a really good description. It is a tight road course. It's very difficult to pass on. When I was there last year, I really felt like the only passing zone was on the restarts, long straightaway going in that tight right-hander into the S's. If you got that locked down, going in that right-hander into the S's, you were home free. Corey Heim last year wins the pole. Green to checkered wins. Of course, that 11 was dominant throughout the entire season, regardless of the course, and wins the championship. And we see various lead changes throughout the ARCA race as well. Yes, Annunziata does run off with it, but someone else could have taken that race from him. And of course, the Truck Series racing was exciting. Maybe not the cleanest, but on a tight road course like Lime Rock, these things are going to happen. Crashes are going to occur. And I think the thing that really saved me, I was kind of leaning towards, NASCAR, you tried this out, but maybe it's just time to try something else. But the thing that saved me, and the reason why I am in favor of the trucks and ARCA, of course, returning to Lime Rock, where Giovanni Ruggiero got passed was not on that turn 1 on the restart. It was turn 7 towards the later frame of the circuit. Yeah, of course, Gio gets loose there, and the veteran Grant is going to, of course, pounce and gets around him. But I wasn't expecting that. I really thought once you get in front, it's kind of lights out there. And that did prove me wrong. And good for Grant to get that win. That wraps up discussions with Dave, part 1. Now for Paint Scheme of the Week. If you've been paying attention to Paint Scheme of the Week, been doing a mix of past paint schemes from years past and keeping up to date with the current new ones. I think the last 3 or 4 weeks have done, current recent paint schemes that have ran. But we're throwing it back to a great paint scheme. That was the 44 for Terry Labonte. And that was the Kellogg's Cornflakes car. NASCAR and brands go hand in hand. When you think Rusty Wallace, you think of Miller Lite. When you think of Busch Light, you think Ross Chastain, Kevin Harvick. The brands go with the drivers. And with Terry Labonte, he was the Cornflakes guy. Yes, he had other sponsors, but that was kind of one of my first memories, seeing him run that car. And this week's Paint Scheme of the Week, Terry Labonte's Kellogg's Cornflakes car. Now for NASCAR History Time, North Wilkesboro. There are a few tracks in NASCAR that of course embody the sport's rich history, but no one does it like North Wilkesboro Speedway. The iconic short track first opened its gates on May 18th, 1947, nearly a year before NASCAR was even officially founded, with Fonny Flock winning the inaugural race on the original dirt surface of the track. The track remained dirt until it was paved in '57. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like to be at that first race in North Wilkesboro in '47. Like, what did the cars sound like then? And, what was going on in the stands? What was going on in the pits? Things as a huge race fan I'm thinking about, but love talking about old races. So let's go on. Wilkesboro hosted its first NASCAR Cup Series race in 1949, where Bob Flock, Fonty's brother, claimed the victory. The Speedway became a beloved stop on the NASCAR schedule for nearly 5 decades, before 2 Cup dates were moved following the 1996 season. There's no racing on the track for a long time. Aside from a brief revival in 2010 and 2011, North Wilkesboro sat dormant for more than 2 decades. Most thought the track would just go to Mother Nature. We would never see racing there again. That's until there was a revival. A crew led by Dale Earnhardt Jr., originally just to clean up the track enough for iRacing to scan it so we could at least save the track digitally, eventually came onto the national spotlight and rekindled one of stock cars' most treasured venues. And now, in 2026, after Wilkesboro hosted the All-Star race for a couple years, North Wilkesboro is getting a Cup Series points race. I went to North Wilkesboro for the first time last year with my mom. Stopped by for the truck race and, of course, the Cup Series practice. I knew the track was going to be awesome, but I was just knocked out of the park. Starting with the drive into the track. Windy country roads, songs playing. That's really must have what those guys in the 40s and from years past and NASCAR greats, the King, Earnhardt, those are the hills and the roads that those guys drove to North Wilkesboro. I thought that was really cool. And you get to the track, everyone is just pumped up. And I've heard, that the track is on a hill and there's going up from turn 4 into turn 1, you're, driving upwards, and then you're driving back down from 3 to 4. Walking on the side of the track, you were on a slope. Like, you could feel that. That was really cool. And just all the history that went along with the track, the names, the different grandstands. It's so awesome that the Cup Series is getting a points race. I think they're going to put on a fantastic show this upcoming Sunday night. And that was this week's edition of NASCAR History Time. Now to one of the guys that was up front on the O'Reilly race in Atlanta is Garrett Smithley. Here's what Garrett had to say. Greatly appreciated his time.
Next guest, we bring on the splash of gas of the driver of the number 0 Chevy for SS Greenlight Racing on the NASCAR O'Reilly Series is Garrett Smithley. Thanks for joining the show, Garrett, and congrats on the finish in Atlanta.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was an exciting weekend, and man, 6th place. I couldn't do much better than that.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, great to see that car and that team finishing up towards the front. And before we get into the recent action, you're from Ligonier, PA, outside of Pittsburgh. What was it like growing up there and racing for you at a young age?
It's funny enough. I didn't do any racing up there. I was only up there for 5 years, and then moved to Northern Virginia, and then moved on down to Georgia, where I started my racing career at 15, running the Bandler's Legend cars on the quarter mile. But racing was always in my blood. I grew up a huge fan of it. My dad was a huge fan of it. That was our Sundays. We would go to church and then go back home and watch the NASCAR races. There is a track called Jennerstown right outside of Ligonier. And every time that we drove past that track, I was like, man, I want to race there one day. And it was shut down at the time. And fortunately, I've gotten to race there twice, once in the Cars Tour and once for the Motor Mountain Masters. I'm hoping to do that again this year at some point. But it's always fun to go back home and race in front of the hometown crowd. And I've spent a lot of time up there, go up there pretty much, for all the holidays, and still have a lot of family up there. So it's really cool to be doing what I'm doing from a town of, basically 1,400 people. And I know I got a lot of good support up there.
Heck yeah, no, definitely saw that out in Pocono, but yeah, from the past several years, getting into more the NASCAR stuff. You make your debut in the Xfinity Series, 2015 Homestead. Then the next 4 seasons from 16 to 19, you're full time with JD Motorsports. Of course, you run with those guys years after that, those early years in the series, week in, week out, full time. What was like that experience for you at JDM early on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Mittler gave me my big break, getting into NASCAR in the Truck Series, and then really what allowed me to make the amount of starts that I made and kind of become a staple in the Xfinity and now O'Reilly Series is Johnny Davis giving me an opportunity. And when I showed up and met with him for the first time in 2016, it was only supposed to be a 3-race deal, and it turned into 32 out of 33 races, and that turned into the next 4 years racing for him, and then eventually going back and getting to race for him in his now it seems like it's going to be the final season for JDM. He's been such a huge part of my career, and starting there and racing the number 0 and kind of coining it the number nothing, and now kind of taking that over to Bobby's. It's kind of an homage to him and what he's done for me in my career. We got to do a really, really cool throwback for him at Darlington, which was really special. Got to bring him out to the track, him and his wife, and he had a great time out there. So, yeah, it's had a really, really good time racing there. We had some really good runs, finished fifth at Daytona. That was my career best, and just about bested that this past weekend. So definitely very thankful for all the opportunities that he's given me and a lot of people in this sport.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a mix of drivers that are still actively driving, like yourself, that have ran for him. So no, appreciate touching upon working for Johnny, and then you make your Cup Series debut in 2018. Then big portion of the Cup Series the following 3 seasons, primarily with Rick Ware Racing. I mean, I've had Carson on the show before. What's it like working with everyone at RWR?
Yeah, I mean, Rick's a great guy, and again, like Johnny, he's a journeyman racer. He grinds. He works really, really hard for what he has, and gives a lot of people opportunities. And he certainly gave me a huge opportunity in the Cup Series, and large reason why I have 76 Cup races. And especially during COVID, we did the iRacing Pro Invitational, and I was racing for Rick at the time, and I was driving the 51. So he got really into that, and that's kind of the catalyst for me to run as many Cup races as I did and get some really good support and sponsor support, team support. And I'm just super proud of where he has come and what he's accomplished. He was one of the guys that really recognized that these charters in the Cup Series sorry about that. That these charters in the Cup Series were going to be as valuable as they were, and he went out on a limb and ended up being in control of 4 of them, and he's really set himself up for success in the Cup Series with all that. So I'm really thankful for him. He's a really smart business guy, really smart marketing guy, and really proud of where he's come for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you touching upon that. And yeah, just with the charter system, the way it is and what it's grown into now, yeah, I mean, that from a business side really made a lot of sense, for Rick, for sure. And as we just mentioned, you've been in the sport for a number of years, and just went over a race for a mix of teams as we were talking. Reed Sorensen mentioned on Dale Jr.'s podcast, when racing for some middle of the pack teams, it can get wild in the hornet's nest, of course, but sometimes the goals can be different. Any truth to that? And what's your mindset? I mean, or does your mindset change as a driver depending on the equipment?
Yeah, it certainly changes. I mean, my entire career has kind of been built off of keeping the car clean and, maximizing the equipment and, doing the best that we can with what we have. And knowing that, honestly, this past weekend is no different, because this car that we finished 6th with is the car that our team wanted to take to Indianapolis. And had we gotten in any of those wrecks, it would have been a detriment to our guys and would have put a huge workload on them that they really don't need, and really would have put Bobby in a tough financial situation just to build another car. Not that he can't, and not that he has the ability to, but we're trying to stretch our budget and do the best that we can with what we have. And if we can take that budget and take it and use it to improve the car, rather than fix cars or build new ones, then that's ultimately gonna help us out more so than anything else, because we're already up against so much, with the big teams. I mean, with our guys, we have less than 10 guys that work on our car. And, in a world where we're racing against, teams that have 250 plus employees, that's the uphill battle that we have. So, I definitely have made my career out of keeping things clean. And, to your point and to Reed's point, a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to, do what we do, especially in the Cup Series with, the smaller teams, because it's so much more difficult to go out there and compete in a slow car than it is to compete in a fast car. And often we're working harder than some of those guys. So I've been fortunate to be at the front, a handful of times. And again, this weekend was one of those times. We proved that we can do that. So, we want to get more resources and more sponsors and more opportunities to do that. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, we're all competitors and we want to do the best we can.
Got it. Appreciate the honesty there and the insight, and totally agree with what you're saying over there. And then getting into the more recent action, the 3-race stretch from Texas, Dover, and Nashville was a harder one for you in the Zero team. You're in the Young's O'Reilly car in Chicagoland, finished P18. Curious to see what you felt about that track. I mean, it was the first time since NASCAR raced there since 2019. How was that for you out in Illinois?
Yeah, Chicagoland is one of my favorite tracks and always has been. And if it stays on the schedule, it probably will be my favorite track. I've kind of had a favorite track identity problem just since they repaved Atlanta, because beforehand the old Atlanta surface was my favorite track, and since they repaved it, I still enjoy going there, and it's obviously the home track, and I've always obviously had some success there. But as a racer, you want to go to places that you can control, and I really like the older, worn out, the bumpier tracks. It gives us more opportunities to really work on our craft and maybe not be so reliant on our car and how good or bad the car is. So, I really enjoyed going to Chicago. I was really thankful for that opportunity with Tyler Young, and thankful that Bobby and Beth and Randy from BR Racing, they allowed me to go do that. It was a great race for us, and I mean P18. That was pretty good for what we had going on. And for me, I hadn't raced in a month because we had Cole Custer in the car at Pocono, and then we had Alex LeBay do all the road courses. So, I was definitely glad to get back in there and really enjoyed doing it.
Got it. Yeah, good result to get acclimated after that downtime, and getting into Atlanta. Assuming you were feeling good after the P14 finish earlier in the year, you qualify 26th. I mean, 33rd in stage 1, 30th in the middle one, and then stage 3, as we know, cautions just breed cautions. I mean, 4 red flags for the cleanups, 2 overtimes. How did you navigate the 0 up to the top 10 and onto that P6 finish there?
Yeah, we took the same exact car. In fact, it was the same exact wrap. We had just let it sit in the shop since the first Atlanta race. We were fortunate that we didn't need to race it anywhere. And I was just like, hey, that car is really good for us in February. And if at all possible, if we can take that and duplicate that and maybe run a little bit better, that'd be ideal. So that's what we did. We kind of bided our time. I felt like our car was actually a little bit better in February than the car that we had this time. We fought some handling issues. The more and more we go back to Atlanta, and people have been talking about it, but the more and more grip that it loses. And so handling has really started to become a factor. I've never gotten to race on the old surface before they repaved Daytona, but I've heard a lot of comparisons to, Daytona, 2006, 2007, 2008, those races where it kind of gets spread out. It's still pack racing and still the draft is very much evident, but you still have to have a car that handles. And that's basically what it was. So we kind of had to fix some of that stuff, but at the same time, we also knew that we needed to get to the end and we needed to have a car that was going to get us to the end. So we kind of bided our time and just let the race come to us. And, about 40 laps to go, that's when I started going, and that's when the wreck started happening. And we were far enough behind them that we were able to avoid the carnage and not get run over. And, then the last few restarts, we just executed correctly. And got to give a shout out to Brent Wentz, my spotter. He did a masterful job of getting me through everything and talking me through everything and keeping me calm. I mean, that was a big thing. So, just kind of meticulously worked our way up there and missed the crashes and ultimately got the 6th place finish. I mean, again, as a competitor, you always want more. You always, when you see the front of the field like that, it's like, man, you start to really get the adrenaline going. And it's like, man, we could actually win this thing. And, a good friend of mine, Brennan Poole, he just about won the thing and led the white flag lap. So, just thankful that it worked out the way it did. And our team car, the 07 car, finished 12th with hardly any damage. So, really, really good day for the SS Greenlight group.
Yeah, I can only imagine what the spotters are feeling up there. So definitely agree with what you're saying. Shout out to your spotter. But yeah, just and then what also you were saying with Brendan was definitely pulling for him. Just being the underdog up there. But yeah, and then post race it was really great to see the video of the your team going up to your car and celebrating that finish, and those guys work their tails off, as you were just saying. So great way to finish for Atlanta for both cars, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was so excited about. I mean, I had my family there, I had my fiance there, and so that was great. But just to see the faces of all of our guys, and they work so hard, and they probably don't get the credit they deserve. And a lot of times they're racers too. They're competitors. They're folks that want to do as good as we can. And there's some days where, like Bristol earlier this year, we were terrible and we broke, and it was just, they didn't work any less on that car than they did on the Atlanta car. We just didn't get the results that we wanted and deserved. And so for them to get those results, it definitely means a lot. And we really have a good group around us. It's a small group, but it's a good group, and we have each other's backs. And it's definitely nice to be able to perform like that, and especially going into an off weekend and to kind of ride that wave all the way to Indy. It's going to be a good few weeks.
For sure. It's great that you have that group along for the ride. And last question, 3 races until the playoffs start, the chase. I mean, know you're focused on the whole season and every race. I mean, just as you mentioned, Indy in 2 weekends, Iowa, then Daytona. Assuming you have Daytona circled on your calendar, but how do you feel going to Indy next weekend with the card that you were just talking about?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited. I mean, Indy has become, it is one of my favorite tracks since day one. I've always really enjoyed racing there and racing there with JD Motorsports, and then racing there for the Brake Yard 400 in the Cup Series. One of my best finishes there, 24th. We have just so much momentum, taking the same car. We're going to change the setup a little bit just because it's such a different track, but we're using the super speedway motor again, and so it's a little bit more of an equalizer. Indy's going to be a little bit more strung out just because of the nature of what that track is. But again, there's no reason why we can't go and run, top 20, top 15. And, if there's some attrition again and we put ourselves in the right position, maybe even another top 10. So for us, our goal always is, top 20, top 25, depending on the track. That's kind of our benchmark. So if we can do that and do a little bit better, anything's a bonus for us. So we're just hoping to continue the momentum, and Iowa's the same. Iowa's a short track and, a really, really cool event that we get to go and do. And then, 2 weeks off, and then we go to Daytona, where I had my best finish of the year last year in 8th. So a lot of really good tracks for us coming up, and very, very excited to see how that all goes.
Yeah, for sure. Really hope you guys can continue that momentum from Atlanta and from those other runs. And thank you so much for the time, Garrett. Really do appreciate the insight, and hope to have you on before the season ends. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do want to give a shout out to SLCC. That SLCC came on board, and they were our big sponsor this weekend. Hopefully to expand some stuff with them, and Trophy Tractor, Dozer Winch, True Brand. Everybody makes this happen. Soul Source, and shout out to Bobby Daughter. It was his birthday on Saturday, so got a chance to give him a good birthday present.
Heck yeah, awesome. Really do appreciate that, and thanks so much for your time. Safe travels out there. Okay, and have a good off weekend. All right.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you. See ya.
Great to have Garrett on the show and talk to him. Now for discussions with Dave, Part 2. NASCAR has recently announced the public celebration of life for Kyle Busch that will take place following the Truck Series race at Charlotte on October 9th. Tommy Baldwin recently said on Door Bumper Clear that the Truck Series championship moving forward should be named after Kyle Busch. 1000% agree with that. Kyle Busch meant so much to NASCAR, and people might not realize how much he meant to those lower series. As we've been talking, since Kyle passed, fortunately, to some of his fellow competitors, and, specifically had Ben Rhodes on a couple weeks ago. Ben went into detail on how much he loved when Kyle would be running truck races, and which he wish he was able to run the full season, as he said on the show. And with how many years KBM was dominant in the Truck Series, I think it's only fitting. Since Lime Rock and Atlanta, we are closing in on the end of the regular seasons for each 3 of the series, which is kind of crazy to think of it, but Daytona, the last weekend of August for the Cup Series, is the last regular season race. Then the chase starts. And there's some drivers that have already clinched, and the guys that have already clinched, it's no-brainers. These guys are going to make the chase and playoffs regardlessly. You got Denny Hamlin clinching on the Cup Series side. Him and Tyler Reddick are most likely going to duke it out for the regular season title. We'll see how that wraps up in Daytona at the end of August. And then Layne Riggs, Kaden Honeycutt lock in on the Truck Series side. No-brainers for both of those guys. They're going to be battling for a championship all the way into Homestead, in my opinion. Those are the 2 most dominant trucks. We saw what the 11 did last year. Riggs is just getting better and better. Obviously, it's mathematics, right? But with these guys clinching the spot, it almost feels like a little bit of a win and you're in. Now these teams have extra time to work on these cars for the start of the playoffs and the championship run that each of these teams are looking to have. And that wraps up this episode's edition of Discussions with Dave. Now for the Tire Diaries for North Wilkesboro. Cup Series will run the same Goodyear Racing Eagle tires that they ran at Martinsville in March. This short track setup debuted in Martinsville in 2025 in the fall race, and then the right side tire also ran at Bowman Gray and Phoenix earlier this year. The Truck Series will run a familiar right side tire race several times this year, including last year at North Wilkesboro, alongside a new left side tire. That specification was introduced at Phoenix for the NASCAR O'Reilly Series race, but has not raced in the Truck Series yet. Interesting. Now for the tire allotment, starting with the Truck Series, with North Wilkesboro being under a mile, there are wet weather tires available, if there is weather, of course. 3 sets of the wet weather tires. Racing slicks, 5 sets, 3 for the race, 1 qualifying that transfer in, and 1 for practice. Cup Series, 4 sets of wet tires, racing slicks, 1 for practice, 1 for qualifying that scuffs that transfer in, and 8 new sets. O'Reilly is off this weekend at North Wilkesboro, but nonetheless, the Cars Tour is going to be in action Friday night, kicking things off. There's a lot of racers from the Truck Series and even some Cup guys running in the Cars Tour Friday night. There are a number of guys that are doing double duty on Friday night. Let's start off with the drivers to look out for the Cars Tour Pro Late Model race. Casey Clean will be running the 3. He's been quick. DJ DeCare is a guy, you've heard that name in the late model world. Of course, Chase Elliott, 2020 Cup Series champ, current Cup Series driver. He's driving the 9 in that one. Jack Baldwin will be driving the 11. Minnie Tyrell, full-time in the Truck Series with Colleague in the Ram. Minnie, as we know, made his name on short tracks. He should be a favorite. Max Reeves is running the 18. We know how dominant he is in the ARCA Series. What can Max do on this short track? Then we have past South Carolina 400 winner Trayton Lapsevich. What can he do? Albert Francis, seen him run a lot of road course stuff, and he was making a splash when the SRX Series was running. Connor Jones is in the 44. He should be good. Brother to Jack is Luke. Just talking about their dad, Tommy, about door bumper clear. Carson Ware in the 51. We have seen Carson win on the Pro Late Model side in that Rick Ware Racing 51. That car should be quick. Kaden Honeycutt in the 54. Gio Ruggiero in the 55. Keelan Harvick is in this one as well. Last but not least, Corey Heim. This is really going to be a stacked field. Then that leads us into the late model stock race. And there's even more names in this one. Start things off, and this car has proven to be fast, and that's the 03 from Lee Pullman Performance Racing, driven by Brendan Butterbean Queen. Super pumped up as a late model fan to see Brandon behind the 03 again. Got Ronnie Bassett Jr. in the 04, should be quick. Cade Brown, another guy that's won the South Carolina 400. Parker Eatman, had Parker on the show earlier this year, running part-time truck schedule with Nice Motorsports. Got Connor Hall, another guy that's running for Nice Motorsports in this one. Connor's the one really as the brains as their new late model program over at Nice, and I think he'll be leading the charge and contending for sure in this one. Carson Brown in the 5. Jesse Love hopping down in this one. Excited to see Jesse in this race. Corey Heim doing double duty with Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's running a junior motorsports car in this one. Heim and Elliott should be contending. Got Kaden Honeycutt in the 17. Max Reeves in the 18. A lot of guys doing double duty, like I said. Then you got both Landon Huffmans, Landon S. Huffman and Landon Huffman. Last but not least, another guy doing double duty, and that's Trajan Lapsevich. Now, looking towards the truck series side of things, we'll look at Luke Baldwin. We're going to see him run Friday night, as we just mentioned. Luke is known for having real good runs on the modify side of things on the short tracks. Seen him at Turkey Derby before. Luke's on a part-time schedule with Rayum Brothers Racing this year. Luke just, tough luck has kind of bit him with going to a short track. I think he should have a good day, maybe a top 15. Chase Elliott's running the 7. Going to be looking out for him for sure. Last week's winner, Grant Enfinger. Wouldn't be surprised if we see the 9 towards the front again. Kaden Honeycutt in the 11. We saw Corey Heim lead most of that race at North Wilkesboro last year. What can Kaden do? Think he's going to be contending. Brendan Queen, just talking about him, driving on Friday night as well. I think Queen, if he can get that track position up front, I don't see why he contends. I think a top 5, 4th or 5th is more realistic. But if he gets a chance to win the race, that's not going to surprise me. And another short track guy that's in good equipment is that 13 of Cole Busher. Giovanni Ruggiero, I think he's going to be up front. Then, super excited for this next driver. He'll be driving the 25 Ram, Rocket Man, Ryan Newman. Super pumped to see Ryan behind the wheel. Layne Riggs, Chandler Smith. Chandler won North Wilkesboro last year in the trucks. Both of those guys should be up front. I believe Layne finished second because he kind of used up Corey Heim, and then Smith got around. Christopher Bell's in the 62. He'll be gunning for another race win. Shane Van Gisbergen is in the 71. I think Shane, top 10 finish. That'd be a great day for him. You got Carson Hocevar in the 77. And another short track guy that should be towards the front is Ty Majeski. Now, Cup Series side of things. That one of Ross Chastain. Yes, Trackhouse Racing has been a little bit lackluster on the ovals this year. I think Ross can get into the top 10. Kyle Larson, going to be gunning for the win, of course. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, past winner from Atlanta, Blaney, Christopher Bell. One guy that has not been having a good year, that's Josh Berry. You know, fortunately, the way the playoffs ended for him last season, and as we know, Josh is not going to be back in the 21 Wood Brothers, but this is a short track. I think Josh will have an opportunity to shine on Sunday. Got Joey Logano, should be another fast Team Penske car. William Byron, I know I did just mention Chase Elliott. I think William Byron is probably going to have the best finish of the HMS cars. Ty Gibbs, we saw what he did at Bristol, obviously a little bit of a different track. I think Gibbs is going to be up front as well. Carson Hocevar, he's been running good. If he can get track position, we know he's going to put that 77 anywhere where he sees room. And last point I want to make for North Wilkesboro, it's been great having the All-Star race there and seeing all the history of the sport and just how awesome that track is. Having a full-time Cup race at North Wilkesboro is just awesome. I can't wait for that tire fall off, to see how those long runs are going to be. As a race fan, it's going to be great. Now for Fast Davies bets. As I was mentioning in the Truck Series review, it's a really stacked field. Got several Cup drivers coming down this one. Last year's winner, Chandler Smith, is right now plus 1,000 odds to win. Ty Majeski, Mr. Short Track in my opinion, is plus 2,000 to win. Yes, a lot of good trucks, including Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Carson Hocevar, and good equipment in this one. And then Ryan Newman, of course. But I think both of those are good options. Now for the Cup side of things, Ty Gibbs, her top 3 finish, is plus 450. Think those are good ones as well. Now for trivia answer time. This episode's question is, NASCAR heads out to North Wilkesboro for this upcoming weekend in North Carolina. They started racing out in Wilkesboro before NASCAR even started in 1948. What year did North Wilkesboro open, and who won that first race at the track? Hint, he's in the Hall of Fame. Answer. There are a few tracks that ooze with history like North Wilkesboro does. That track opened its doors on May 18th, 1947, for a race that was won by future NASCAR Hall of Famer Fonty Flock. Now the predictions for North Wilkesboro. Cars Tour, Pro Late Models, Keelan Harvick, think he gets the win. Late Model Stock Race, give me the 03. Butterbean Queen. Truck Series, he's not full-time in the Cup Series until next year, but it's still gonna be Heim time. Cup, give me the 24. Willie B. William Byron. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Till next time, everybody, Splash of Gas out.